Commander Z of the Galactic Armada straightened his posture as the holographic display illuminated the bridge. His 6 appendages twitched with anticipation. After 17 successful planetary conquests, Earth would be number 18. A nice, round number in the universal basics mathematics his species used. Status report, he demanded, his voice modulator adjusting to the authoritative tone he had perfected over his 300 cycles of military service. Lieutenant Rax, a younger officer with only 4 appendages, a sign of youth among their species, stepped forward with a data crystal. Full analysis of the target planet, Commander. Our scouts report minimal defensive capabilities. Primitive nuclear weapons. No interplanetary travel infrastructure beyond their moon. Limited artificial intelligence. And most importantly, he paused for dramatic effect. They spend approximately 30% of their resources fighting among themselves. Commander Z allowed his face flaps to expand, the equivalent of a smile in human terms. Perfect. The Council has authorized a standard Class 3 invasion. We will begin with communications disruption, followed by scout landings at strategic military locations, then full deployment of our primary forces. Admiral QYX, the oldest member of the bridge crew, cleared her throat tubes. Commander, if I may suggest a note of caution, our preliminary cultural analyses show some unusual patterns among the humans. Z waved 3 appendages dismissively. Admiral, I appreciate your thoroughness, but let us remember the Zorgan system. They claim to have unusual patterns as well, and we conquered them in less than 2 rotations. The Zorgans were pacifists who communicated through interpretive dance, sir. Exactly my point. Utterly predictable once you understand their weaknesses. Z turned to the tactical officer. Set course for Earth. Estimated time of arrival, 8 hours in their time measurement, Commander. Excellent. Prepare the first wave assault teams. I want boots on the ground, or whatever approximation of boots our exosuits represent by what the humans call lunchtime. I hear they are particularly vulnerable when consuming nutrition. Jackson Taylor was having a regular Tuesday. The morning train was late, his coffee had gone cold before he could finish it, and his boss had scheduled yet another meeting that could have been an email. Now, standing in line at his favorite food truck, Taco Tuesday was sacred. After all, he noticed something odd in the sky. Hey, Stan, you seeing this? He asked the man behind him in line. Stan glanced up from his phone, squinting at the strange metallic objects descending through the clouds. Weather balloons. 12 identical weather balloons, in perfect formation. Military drones then, Stan shrugged, returning to his social media feed. Government's always testing something. The objects grew larger, and Jackson realized they were easily the size of commercial airliners, but with a distinctly non-aerodynamic design. Like someone had taken giant metal eggs and attached irregular protrusions all around them. Jackson's phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Unidentified flying objects reported over major cities worldwide. Government officials urge calm. As if on cue, every electronic device in the vicinity, phones, tablets, the digital menu board at the food truck, flickered and went dark. Come on, someone line protested. I was about to confirm my fantasy football trades. The food truck owner, Miguel, leaned out of his service window. No electricity. Cash only, folks. A collective groan rose from the line, followed by a general shuffling as people checked their wallets for physical currency. A rare commodity in 2025. Jackson's attention, however, remained fixed on the sky. The objects had stopped their descent and now hovered about 500 feet above the city streets. A seam appeared along the bottom of the nearest one, and a ramp extended downward. Guys, Jackson pointed upward. I don't think those are weather balloons or drones. A figure emerged at the top of the ramp. From this distance, Jackson could make out multiple limbs, an iridescent exoskeleton, and what appeared to be some kind of weapon. Holy! Stan finally looked up from his dead phone. Is that an alien? Yeah, I think so. The creature at the top of the ramp raised what was unmistakably a weapon and fired. A pulse of energy struck a nearby traffic light, which exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. For a moment, everyone in the taco line stood frozen. Then, does this mean we're not getting tacos? Someone asked. Miguel, the food truck owner, emerged with a shotgun. Nobody messes with Taco Tuesday, he declared, pumping the weapon with dramatic flair. Jackson should have been terrified. The rational response would be to run, to seek shelter, to call. Well, he couldn't call anyone with the phones down. But what he felt wasn't terror. It was a strange cocktail of emotions. Disbelief, certainly. Concern, absolutely. But predominantly, inconvenience. I had 3 meetings this afternoon. He muttered to nobody in particular. Now I have to reschedule everything. Lieutenant Crixa adjusted her translation module as the first wave of scout troops descended the ramp. The preliminary attack on the primitive electrical node had been successful. The small gathering of humans below seemed appropriately stunned. Remember your training. She addressed her squad through their neural communicators. Humans are fragile, but unpredictable. Subdue and secure. No unnecessary terminations. The Council wants this species studied before full processing begins. She raised her appendage to signal the advance when something unexpected happened. One of the humans emerged from a wheeled structure with what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. "Defensive positions," she commanded, but before her troops could respond, the human fired. The projectile struck Private Drixel's exosuit, causing him to stumble backward. Not injured, but clearly surprised by the impact. Fascinating, Crixa noted for the mission log. They resort to physical resistance immediately, despite being clearly outmatched. Perhaps they cannot comprehend technological gap. She signaled to her heavy weapons specialist. Non-lethal suppression field. 10 meter radius. The specialist activated the device, and a wave of energy pulsed outward. It was designed to temporarily paralyze any carbon-based life form within range, to Crix's astonishment. While several humans dropped to the ground, others appeared merely disoriented. One human, the one with the primitive weapon, actually fired again, this time striking the suppression field generator and damaging it. "Impossible," she muttered. "According to our intelligence, their physiology should be completely susceptible to the field." Her communicator crackled. "Lieutenant, we are receiving similar reports from other landing zones. The humans are displaying unexpected resistance patterns. Commander Z requests immediate status update." Crixa watched as more humans emerged from nearby structures, some with weapons, others simply holding rectangular devices they pointed at the aliens, recording devices perhaps. "Tell Commander Z," she replied slowly, "that we may need to reassess our invasion parameters. The humans are not behaving according to standard conquest protocols." Commander Z paced the bridge, all 6 appendages twitching with agitation. "What do you mean? Not according to protocol? They are a pre-interstellar species with internal conflicts and limited unified defense capabilities. This should be the textbook definition of an easy conquest." Admiral QYX cleared her throat tubes again. "Sir, if I may, the cultural analyses I mentioned earlier, one pattern we observed is that humans have an extraordinary capacity for adapting to unusual circumstances. They appear to normalize the abnormal with remarkable speed." The communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we are receiving reports from all landing zones. The humans are, well, sir, they appear to be going about their daily routines, simply navigating around our forces." "What?" "Yes, sir. In what they call New York, our forces disrupted a major transportation hub. The humans complained vocally, but then created alternative routes within minutes. In Tokyo, our atmospheric disruptors caused a power outage, and the humans simply brought out portable lighting devices and continued their activities. In London, they are offering our troops something called Z's eye stalks extended to their full length, a sign of extreme confusion in their species. Have they not understood that we are invading their planet? That their way of life is about to end?" Admiral QYX's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I believe they understand, Commander. They simply don't seem particularly impressed." By mid-afternoon, Jackson Taylor had joined what could only be described as a neighborhood militia, though it felt more like a block party with weapons. Mrs. Patel from the apartment above his had brought out samosas. Old Mr. Gunderson had retrieved his hunting rifles from a locked cabinet and was showing people how to load them properly. Teenagers were posting alien encounter videos to back up social media platforms that somehow still worked despite the communications disruption. "So," said Anna, a barista from the coffee shop down the street, as she loaded rounds into a magazine, "anyone know if these aliens are gluten-free? I made brownies, but I don't want to be insensitive." I think dietary restrictions are the least of their concerns, Jackson replied, peering around the makeshift barricade they constructed from overturned cars and furniture. They seemed pretty focused on the conquering humanity thing. Down the street, a group of aliens was attempting to secure an intersection. Their weapons were undeniably advanced. Energy pulses that could melt asphalt and disable electronics. But their tactics were surprisingly straightforward. They moved in formation, secured positions, and seemed genuinely confused when humans simply found ways around them. "You know what this reminds me of?" said Miguel, who had driven his taco truck right up to the barricade and was now serving lunch to the resistance. That time he shut down Fifth Avenue for the marathon, and everyone just collectively decided to ignore all the barriers. Jackson nodded, accepting a plate of tacos. New Yorkers don't reroute for anyone, not even aliens. A sudden commotion drew their attention. One of the aliens, distinguishable by different markings on its exosuit, was approaching the barricade alone, a white flag attached to one of its appendages. Are they surrendering already?" Anna asked incredulously. "I think they want to talk," Jackson replied, standing up cautiously. The alien stopped a few meters from the barricade. A voice emanated from its suit, clearly running through some kind of translation matrix. The result was a flat, mechanical voice with oddly perfect enunciation. "Humans, I am Lieutenant Crixa of the Galactic Armada. We have observed your response to our invasion forces and wish to understand your strategy." Jackson exchanged glances with the others before stepping forward as the de facto representative. "Our strategy? Yes. You continue your daily activities despite our presence. You adapt to our disruptions with minimal delay. You offer no centralized resistance, yet impede our progress at every turn. Are you employing some form of psychological warfare by pretending we are not a threat?" Jackson couldn't help but laugh. "We are not pretending anything. Look, we have seen this movie before. Aliens invade. Humanity bands together. We find some unlikely weakness in your biology or technology, and against all odds, David beats Goliath. It's Tuesday. I've got a presentation tomorrow that I haven't finished. Alien invasion or not, my boss still expects it on his desk." The alien's appendages twitched in what might have been confusion. "You prioritize employment obligations over planetary defense. Welcome to capitalism," Anna called out from behind the barricade. "Want a brownie while we discuss terms?" Aboard the command ship, Z stared at the holographic displays in disbelief. After 6 hours of invasion operations, their forces had secured exactly 0 strategic objectives. The humans weren't fighting back in any organized fashion. They were simply carrying on. "This defies all conquest logic," he muttered. "Admiral, explain this to me. Why aren't they panicking? Why aren't their governments mobilizing full military responses? Why is there a line of humans outside our landing craft in the Paris region attempting to sell our troops small replicas of their local architecture?" Admiral QYX had been reviewing cultural data streams. "Commander, I believe I understand now. The humans have a concept called disaster fatigue. In the last few decades of their history, they have faced pandemics, climate disasters, economic collapses, and political upheavals. They have developed a remarkable psychological ability to absorb shocking developments and continue functioning. So they are not impressed by our invasion because they have seen worse." "Not exactly, sir. I think it's more that they have developed efficient coping mechanisms. And there's something else. Their entertainment media has extensively explored the concept of alien invasions. They have mentally rehearsed this scenario countless times." The communications officer interrupted again. "Sir, Lieutenant Crixa is requesting permission to initiate formal communication channels with a human representative. She says they are offering negotiation and tacos." Z's exoskeleton nearly cracked with frustration. "Tacos? Where are tacos?" "A food item, sir. Apparently quite popular on Tuesdays." By evening, what had started as an alien invasion had transformed into something closer to an awkward first contact scenario. News had spread that the aliens, who called themselves the Vraxians, were actually communicating with civilian representatives while military and government responses were still being organized. Jackson Taylor found himself in the surreal position of sitting in Miguel's taco truck opposite Lieutenant Crixa, who was attempting to understand human behavior while also cautiously sampling a chicken taco. "Your species continues to confound our invasion protocols," the alien said, manipulating the taco with 3 appendages in what looked like a dangerous balancing act. You should be running in terror, not offering us sustenance. Terror takes a lot of energy, Jackson explained, sipping a beer someone had brought from a nearby convenience store. And honestly, we have spent the last decade doom-scrolling through one catastrophe after another. An alien invasion? That's almost refreshing in its straightforwardness. Doom-scrolling. The translation matrix seemed to struggle with the term, constantly consuming bad news on our devices. Look, here's the thing. Humans are remarkably adaptable. We normalized a global pandemic in weeks. Climate disasters are so common, we barely notice them unless they happen locally. Economic meltdowns are just Tuesday for us. Today is Tuesday, Crixo observed. Exactly. And tomorrow will be Wednesday. And we will still have jobs to do, bills to pay, and lives to live. With or without an alien occupation force. Crix's appendages twitched in what Jackson had begun to recognize as their equivalent of thoughtful consideration. Your perspective is illuminating. Our invasion strategists failed to account for this psychological resilience. Outside the taco truck, the scene had transformed again. What had been a neighborhood militia was now closer to a block party. Someone had brought out portable speakers powered by a generator, and music played while people shared food and drinks. Several Vraxian soldiers, apparently acting on Crix's orders to observe rather than conquer, stood awkwardly among the humans, some attempting to mimic the rhythmic movements humans called dancing. Jackson's phone buzzed. Communications were apparently being selectively restored. A news alert informed him that similar scenes were playing out worldwide. In some places, resistance was more organized and violent, but in many others, humans had simply absorbed the alien presence into their daily routines with remarkable speed. So, Jackson said, finishing his beer, what happens now? Do we keep pretending you're trying to conquer us while we keep pretending it's a normal day? Or can we skip to the part where we establish diplomatic relations and cultural exchange programs? Commander Z faced the Galactic Council's emergency holographic session with what his species recognized as profound embarrassment. All eye stalks retracted and ventral plates fully constricted. Let me understand this correctly, said Counselor Drex, the eldest member of the ruling body. After 17 successful planetary conquests, your forces were effectively neutralized by the humans. Indifference. Not indifference, exactly, Z clarified. More like adaptive resilience. They simply incorporated our invasion into their existing frameworks and carried on. Within 24 hours, they were selling merchandise with our images. There are now beverages named after our ships. Someone created an application for their communication devices that allows them to translate our language. Poorly, I might add. Admiral QYX, standing beside him, added, the most remarkable aspect, counselors, is their fragmentation. We expected their divided nature to be a weakness, but it proved to be a strength. There was no single point of failure, no unified system to disrupt. Each community adapted independently and rapidly. And now they are offering formal diplomatic relations. Counselor TRYX sounded incredulous. Yes, Z confirmed. They have proposed an immediate cessation of hostilities, followed by cultural and technological exchange programs. They are particularly interested in our faster-than-light travel capabilities. In return, they have offered streaming service subscriptions and unlimited taco privileges. The council chamber erupted in the characteristic clicking sounds of their species' confusion. I recommend we accept, Admiral QYX stated firmly. Based on my cultural analyses, continuing with standard conquest protocols would be inadvisable. Inadvisable? We have technological superiority in every measurable category. Counselor Drex protested. Perhaps, QYX replied, but they have TikTok and an endless capacity to normalize the bizarre. Within a week, our forces would be participating in viral dance challenges instead of securing objectives. Jay nodded solemnly. She's right. One of our field commanders has already been convinced to try something called crowd surfing. The footage has spread across their global networks. The council deliberated briefly before Counselor Drex spoke again. Very well. Transition from invasion protocols to diplomatic engagement. But Commander Z, this failure will be noted in your service record. Z's ventral plates constricted further. Understood, counselor. 1 month later, Jackson Taylor sat in a conference room, finishing his presentation. His boss nodded approvingly as he clicked through the final slides. Excellent work, Jackson. The Vraxian Cultural Integration Initiative is moving along faster than anyone expected. Thank you, sir. It helps that they are quick learners, even if they are still struggling with the concept of weekends. Through the window, he could see the Vraxian ships that now hovered permanently above major cities. No longer invasion craft, but rather embassies and cultural exchange centers. Lieutenant Crixa, now officially the diplomatic attaché to New York, was scheduled to meet him for lunch. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Vraxian fashion taking Earth by storm. Six-armed jumpsuits, the hot new trend. Jackson smiled as he packed up his presentation materials. The aliens had come to conquer and instead found themselves conquered, not by human weapons or strategy, but by human nature itself. The remarkable ability to take the extraordinary and make it ordinary. To face potential apocalypse and respond with adaptability, commerce, and memes. They had called it an easy conquest. Humanity had called it Tuesday. And now, it was just life. A new normal in a long history of new normals that as he left the conference room. He checked the weather app on his phone, which now included atmospheric conditions from the Vraxian ships in its forecasts. A small icon indicated that Crixa was on her way to their lunch spot. The tracking app had been her idea, a way to navigate human concepts of time and punctuality. Today's special at Miguel's Taco Truck, which had become the unofficial First Contact culinary headquarters, was the Galactic Peace Plate, a fusion of Earth ingredients and Vraxian spices that had humans and aliens alike lining up around the block. Just another perfectly normal Wednesday in the post-almost invasion world.